We're starting. Okay. Welcome back, and I'd like to welcome you to my 72nd birthday and the appropriate chapter that we're starting on, and in terms of all chapters are Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, the very last section of the orally transmitted teachings, translated by Burton Watson, published by Soka Gakkai. We happen to just be starting on Devadatta. And Devadatta, of course, was a very evil person that nonetheless was prophesied to achieve enlightenment in the future. So I want you to all understand, as somebody that has been evil in the past, all of us can transform regardless of the world that we exist in at this moment. The entire message of this whole teaching is the fact that everyone is included. No one is excluded, and therefore no distinction should be made amongst all living beings. So I hope you glean that again from what it's saying over and over and over again. It may sound even a little repetitious at times, but it's because this concept of the oneness of all things is very difficult, seemingly, for people to grasp and embody in their life and their behavior. So that's what we're going to try and do, is get through and make sure that everybody understands to the best of their capacity to perceive the truth. Devadatta, chapter 12. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says this chapter deals with the achievement of Buddhahood by Devadatta, a former teacher of Shakyamuni Buddha. Don't forget the part of this parable, part of this chapter is talking about the fact that Devadatta was actually a seer named Sita, that actually is the one that taught Shakyamuni in that past lifetime. So this chapter deals with the achievement of Buddhahood by Devadatta, a former teacher of Shakyamuni Buddha. Even though in the Lotus Sutra he appears as an evil person that is the enemy of Shakyamuni, that doesn't preclude him from having a Buddha nature that can transform, and he can attain Buddhahood in whatever lifetime in the future that occurs. Of course, the thing for us is all to understand all of this so that we can incorporate the teaching into an achievement of revealing of Buddhahood in our present form in this lifetime. That's the whole idea. We don't want to wait until a future lifetime. That's an unknown circumstance. The thing that we have control over is now. Okay, so this chapter deals with the achievement of Buddhahood by Devadatta, a former teacher of Shakyamuni, and the achievement of Buddhahood by the Dragon King's daughter, who was taught and converted by Manjushri. Now, Manjushri's been teaching the Dragon King and all of the dragons in the bottom of the ocean for all this time until he was called forth for the ceremony in the air, or for the preaching of the Lotus Sutra. Pardon me. And since these are the Devadatta and Dragon King's daughter of Myoho Renge Kyo, it means that all living beings of the 10 worlds and 3,000 realms are likewise Devadatta's and Dragon King's daughters. These living beings of the Dharma realm, which is all of us, okay, who are contrary or hostile in nature, are Devadattas. Okay, and those of the Dharma realm who are marked by greed, anger, and foolishness, the three poisons, are all Dragon King's daughters. So, and it has nothing to do with sexuality. Okay, this is your personage as a human being. In the case of Devadatta, the offense of hostility was an acquired quality because he wasn't hostile until he lost out to Shakyamuni in being chosen by the Shakyamuni's wife, who was not, pardon me, wished for her to, Shuddhodana. Okay, that was Shakyamuni's wife. All right. In the case of Devadatta, the offense of hostility was an acquired quality because he became enraged that Shakyamuni had won over the person that he wanted to be with in marriage. Whereas in the case of all living beings as a whole, the offensive hostility is an essential or intrinsic quality because it's the three poisons of greed, anger, and foolishness, which all living beings are endowed with as the part of their original state, just as they are endowed with the eternally endowed three bodies. Similarly, living beings as a whole have the attainment of Buddhahood of a heavenly king, thus come one, as an intrinsic quality, while Devadatta has the attainment of Buddhahood of heavenly king, thus come one, as an acquired body, as an acquired quality. Likewise, the Dragon King's daughter is the Dragon King's daughter as an acquired quality. This isn't an original state issue. It's a karmic circumstance that led to her being born as the Dragon King's daughter. While all living beings are the Dragon King's daughter as an essential or intrinsic quality, because she's representative of the three poisons, not the acquired nature, but karmically, everything is acquired because it's our preceding causality in previous existences that establishes the causality that we express in our present lifetime. Okay, so I say that again. Likewise, the Dragon King's daughter is the Dragon King's daughter as is the Dragon King's daughter as an acquired quality, while all living beings who all possess the three poisons of greed, anger, and foolishness are the Dragon King's daughter as an essential or intrinsic quality. That's what he was referring to here earlier when he differentiated about intrinsic and acquired based on Devadatta and the Dragon King's daughter. So at the top of page 231, and I'm sure that I didn't lose anybody on that. You do understand what I'm talking about. In effect then, both Shakyamuni Buddha and Manjushri, Devadatta, and the Dragon King's daughter are all efficacies of the single seed of Myoho Renge-kyo. So there is nothing and no one that's excluded, regardless of this seed of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that is the original state. And hence, all originally have attained Buddhahood. All of them are endowed with the eternally endowed three bodies. They all have the Dharma body unmanifested but present in their life, and so they have the reward body unmanifested but present in their life, and the enlightened manifest body, although not present, capable of being manifested in their life. Therefore, when one chants Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, all the living beings in the 10 worlds simultaneously attain Buddhahood, because every time we attain Buddhahood, we qualify that a living being of any circumstance that precedes this time, that moment, also has the same qualities we have. None of us are special or different from one another. So when we attain Buddhahood, everyone attains Buddhahood in the fact that we actualize and validate the fact that they have that potential existing within their original state. This is called the Devadatta of Myoho Renge-kyo. Because the living beings in the 10 worlds and the 3,000 realms are the Dragon King's daughter, their original state is endowed with the three poisons of greed, anger, and foolishness. There is no place that is not the spotless world from chapter 12. So that even hell can become a Buddha land based on the reflective nature of the individuals in it. The Dragon King's daughter in her own body has originally attained Buddhahood, because she's the one that attains Buddhahood as a female and as an animal, okay, in this chapter to validate the point that Manjushri has made, that I have somebody that can express this truth that the Shakyamuni is qualifying, because there was a doubt by one of the people in the midst of all of that during this chapter that said, how could somebody, I think it was Shariputra. The Dragon King's daughter in her own body has originally attained Buddhahood, the three poisons transforming into the Dharma body, reward body, and manifested, or Dharma body, wisdom and emancipation. Okay, the Dragon King's daughter in her own body has originally attained Buddhahood, Dharma body, wisdom, emancipation. and is the entity of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, because the entity of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo relates to the Dharma body, emancipation, and wisdom. The record of the, going on in chapter 13, encouraging devotion, at the top of, in the middle of page 231. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says in this chapter, when Shakyamuni's aunt, Mahaprajapati, and Yoshidara, his wife, are given a prophecy that they will attain Buddhahood. Before he started to practice the Brahma practice and attain Buddhahood and become, hang out with ascetics and stuff, when he was still a prince and had just gotten married and still lived in the palace of the Shakya clan. His father was Surodhana, I believe. This is a prophecy that all living beings of the 10 worlds will simultaneously attain Buddhahood. This is because Shakyamuni's aunt is the aunt of the wonderful law, and Yoshidara is the Yoshidara of the wonderful law. Surodhana is the father. The nature of the minds of the living beings of the 10 worlds is the essence of the sutra that is to be accepted and upheld. Let me say that again. The nature of the minds of the living beings of the 10 worlds from hell to Buddhahood is the essence of the sutra that is to be accepted and upheld. That is the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that exists in all things. This is the transmission of the sutra that is expressed in the encouraging devotion chapter. That is, one is being encouraged to pay devotion to the sutra that upholds the nature of the mind of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and to devote oneself to practice for one's own sake and converting of others, helping them reveal that aspect that already exists within themselves as well, and convincing them that they too can attain Buddhahood, just as you're expressing in your enlightened life. Shakyamuni's aunt and Yoshidara represent the attainment of Buddhahood by women, which again, up until this teaching, that's the whole significance of the Devadatta chapter and the subsequent chapters, women are now included equally with men. And the reference to the 20,000 bodhisattvas at the beginning of the chapter refers to the transmission carried out by men. This chapter then is indicating that yin and yang, female and male, are a single entity. There is no differentiation between men and women other than the karmic state that they exist in a single lifetime. Okay? This chapter then is indicating that the yin and yang, female and male, are a single entity, the entity of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the entity of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the entity of the original state of existence. Peaceful practices at the top of page 232. Now this is where the bodhisattvas are all taking a vow that no matter how much adversity they meet or how much other people may scorn or show them disdain, they will not be deterred in fulfilling their vow. They promise that under whatever circumstance they must endure, they will fulfill their vow to propagate the law in the evil latter day. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, since these are peaceful practices of the wonderful law, even though these are all difficult activities as they're described in that was encouraging devotion. Okay, so in peaceful practice is almost like reward. The record of the orally transmitted is the reward of those who have gone through what they've gone through, the encouraging devotion chapter, chapter 14, peaceful practices. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, since these are peaceful practices of the wonderful law, which those were in the encouraging devotion, the actions of those in the 10 worlds and the 3,000 realms are all peaceful practices, regardless of how they appear on the surface, because they're all of an essential nature of the wonderful law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. They are the entity inherently endowed with boundless benefits that is freely received, and used, or the Buddha bodies of limitless joy. The actions of the body, mouth, and mind, the three ways in which we express and create karma, and the vows are all peaceful practices. And since they are peaceful practices of renge, the lotus, the actions of those in the 3,000 realms and the 10 worlds are religious practices that are clean and pure. Since they are the true aspect of all phenomena, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, as it was understood prior to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the 5th 500-year period being revealed from the depths of the 16th chapter by the original teacher Nichiren, since they are the true aspect of all phenomena, Chapter 2 expedient means there are none that are not peaceful practices. The meaning of the essential teaching is that the bodies and minds of the beings of the 10 worlds, which would include everyone, have always been carrying out the true peaceful practices. The essence of these peaceful practices is this Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that was transmitted to the Bodhisattva superior practices by Shakyamuni in the Supernatural Powers chapter. With these peaceful practices, let us proceed to the Pure Land of Holy Eagle Peak with ease. With these peaceful practices, let us change the environment that we're in, whatever it might be, into the Buddha land. That's what that actually just said. That's the process by which that's proceed to the Pure Land of Holy Eagle Peak. Of course, that would be the 9th consciousness, but that would mean that you must have expressed Buddhahood in your present form for you to get there. All right? In the state of non-substantiality. Means when you enter quietude or you seem to die, but you've never really died. You just have a disjointing of your temporary gathering of the 5 components that create you as a living entity in a single lifetime. Emerging from the earth, chapter 15. Now this is the beginning of the essential teaching. The first 14 chapters, I got to chapter 14, peaceful practices were qualified by Tentai as being theoretical. All right. Now we're getting into the essential last 14 chapters, starting with the emerging from the earth. This is where the bodhisattvas of the earth appear, and Shakyamuni declares that it's been numberless major world system dust particle kalpas since I, in fact, attained Buddhahood. Up to this point, everybody looks at Shakyamuni as someone that attained Buddhahood under the Bodhi tree for the first time in this lifetime. Now he reveals that, no, that's not the case. I qualified all that as an expedient means because you would have never believed me if I'd have started out by telling you the truth. That's why in the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra, he says, in these more than 40 years, I have not yet revealed the truth. This is where he begins to actually reveal the actual truth of numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago, and the true nature, pardon me, I'll read it, I'll remember it again. I always forget it because it's not Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, but it's the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the former day of the law. This chapter follows the transmission section. Everything is preparation, revelation, and transmission are the 3 phases of a sutra. So this almost breaks the Lotus Sutra into 2 sections, the theoretical section and the essential section. All right, so this is the beginning of the essential section. Chapter 14 was the end of the transmission section, okay? The record of the orally transmitted teaching says this chapter follows the transmission section of the theoretical teaching of the first 14 chapters and constitutes the preparation section of the revelation of the essential teaching, the last 14 chapters. Therefore, in order, first of all, to reveal the identity of the Buddha of the original state, who is eternally endowed with the 3 bodies, the Buddha summons forth the disciples of the essential teaching, whom Shakyamuni taught in his original state, the bodhisattvas who exist in the inner life of Shakyamuni Buddha himself. Now, in the latter day of the law, the Daishonin has taught us that Shakyamuni exists in our own minds. So in this opening chapter 15, the bodhisattvas emerge from the earth, but they are the bodhisattvas of the original state, the bodhisattvas who exist in the inner life of Shakyamuni Buddha himself. There's no separation from him. So they are the nature of being a bodhisattva, of the essential teaching in the latter day of the law, those who have the reward mind, the reward body, as the one of the three bodies of the that they be eternally endowed with. They're the bodhisattvas of the earth, of the essential teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Now we're talking about the bodhisattvas of the essential teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Okay, they're two different karmas. The one is born in the fifth 500-year period and beyond. Okay, these appear in the essential teaching, the 15th chapter. These bodhisattvas emerge from the earth of the wonderful law, which is hence the great earth of the 10 worlds. So it has no exclusion, even though they come out looking golden and wonderful, and they have the 32 characteristics of the Buddha. They again are just like us common mortals, born in whatever environment we are, when we that also encounter Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. We encounter the three treasures. They emerge and come forth from the wonderful law. So their essential nature is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and hence the beings of the 10 worlds all emerge in this fashion. We all emerge as essential manifestations of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. These living beings, continuing on the top of page 233, of the 10 worlds, okay, without exclusion in any way, shape, or form of anyone, are bodhisattvas of the wonderful law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And hence they are all great beings, every single one of them, because they are eternally endowed with the three bodies. Okay, they are all great beings endowed with profound pity and compassion, who benefit all sentient beings in great abundance. Thus they come forth from the great earth of Renge, the lotus, and hence both the great earth of the 10 worlds and the bodhisattvas who emerge from it have from the beginning always been clean and pure. So we are not having to go through the process that's described in the theoretical teaching of purification of our six sense organs. This is now qualifying. We actually emerge with our six sense organs actually already in a purified state, but we have to reveal that truth to ourselves once we actually realize that we can become Buddhas in our present form thanks to the teaching of Nichiren in the latter day, and that we actually go through that process of hearing the name and the words of the truth on to the sixth stage of practice, which is perceiving our own Buddha nature. All right? In effect then, so we don't have to go through a process of worrying about purification of the six sense organs. Going through those six stages of practice is what will accomplish and accommodate our realization that that already exists just as it is. In effect then, that we, just as we are Buddhas and always have been. That's what the sixth stage of practice reveals. That's the realization you are, thus come one. That makes you a Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come one, because you achieve that through the Daishonen's teaching and through the chanting of Daimoku to the Gohonzon. Okay? And there's no time limit on how long it takes for that to occur. In effect, then, when one reaches a state of enlightenment, one reaches a state where one perceives the Buddha nature that exists in one's life, the Dharma body, one can see that this emerging from the earth is a process by which the great seeds of Buddhahood of the living beings of the 10 worlds are born. Since it doesn't exclude anybody that's able to achieve that sixth stage of practice has manifested and proven the validity of this fact that there's no exclusion to anybody to be able to attain Buddhahood in their present form because of the great pity and mercy of the Daishonin in expressing Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the fifth 500-year period for all the living beings in that 10,000 years and beyond of Mappo. And emerging is the appearance of these living, of these beings of the 10 worlds as they come forth from the womb, as we come forth, as we emerge from non-substantiality into the phenomenal realm by virtue of birth from a mother. Okay, a mother and a father combine together to create the embryo that comes forth and emerges from the mother's womb. Okay, these bodhisattvas embody the pity and compassion that are inherently a part of all living beings of the 10 worlds, so that nobody in the 10 worlds is excluded. But we embody and express that pity and compassion by virtue of becoming bodhisattvas of the earth. in the latter day. And because the original law of Myoho Renge-kyo, which is the original law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, is being transferred to these bodhisattvas, they emerge from the earth in this fashion, from the wombs of their mothers. They don't come down from other worlds, as it was expressed in the Treasure Tower chapter. Do you understand the difference? From fairy tale to reality is what we just now went over the line, from fairy tale to reality, as it relates to the phenomenal realm in which we live. We don't have beings from other worlds come down to validate the truth of the teaching as they occur in the previous sutras and in the previous 14 chapters of the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Okay, so that's what he's saying there. And because the original law of Myoho Renge-kyo is being transferred to these bodhisattvas, they emerge from the earth in this fashion, as we all do as living beings. Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are just such bodhisattvas, because we emerge from the earth. One should not seek for such bodhisattvas anywhere else. So he's qualifying. Don't look for the bodhisattvas that appeared in the theoretical teaching, or that emerged or made their appearances in the sutras that preceded the lotus. That's why they were called provisional Mahayana, and this is called true Mahayana. Those were all metaphors. I mean, the treasure tower is a metaphor. They are all metaphors for the truth of us as living beings in the latter day of the law, when the true law, the great pure law, can become manifest, because we're in a stage of quarrels and disputes where fairy tales will not get us there. We already have minds that have developed over the centuries that preclude us from being able to believe in those fairy tales and take them seriously and utilize them for the sake of achieving an actual state of Buddhahood, rather than acquired enlightenment like somebody that's practicing Zen or focusing on things that are outside of the realm of reality, as we experience it every day in the 9 worlds. We are 9 worlds who manifest 10th world Buddhists. Okay, that's the whole deal. Okay, one should not seek for such bodhisattvas anywhere else. They aren't anywhere else but here in the Saha world, emerging as regular living beings and revealing their true inner state, the eternally endowed 3 bodies. The lifespan of the Thus Come One, our favorite, the most profound chapter of the entire Lotus Sutra. The record of chapter 16. The record of the early transmitted teaching says the lifespan of the Thus Come One chapter deals with the original life of the living beings of the 10 worlds, the original state of Kuan, the original endowment of the 3 poisons, the original manner in which we manifest ultimately the Dharma body, the reward body, and the manifested body. This chapter is called the Honman, or essential teaching, because it is the gateway, man, or teaching, by which one enters into what is essential or original, hon. The flesh and blood bodies and the minds of ordinary beings are described in this chapter, not with all the spooky, weird shit that occurred in the theoretical teaching. Okay, we're past Dragon King's daughter and Manjushri living under the ocean and teaching the Dragon King and the dragon. All of that's all then. This is now. All right, the blood and flesh and blood bodies and minds of ordinary beings are described in this chapter as essentially or inherently eternal. So that means beginningless, and therefore, or kuan. And therefore, this is called the essential teaching. The part of the sutra before this important point is revealed is called an acquired enlightenment. So under the Bodhi tree, any of that wasn't original enlightenment. What we attain is original enlightenment as common mortals in the Dharma realm. Okay, because that's what the phenomenal realm actually is. But not to the enlightened mind. It is the Dharma realm. Its true aspect is revealed. Okay. The part of the sutra before this important point, before this important point is revealed is an acquired enlightenment. So any of those schools that precede the lotus, any of the sutras, Zen and True Word and Amida, are all based on the flower garland. All those can only take you to acquired enlightenment. It won't be true enlightenment. It won't be lasting enlightenment. It will be a level of perception you're satisfied with, and it'll only be a karmic circumstance for a single lifetime. All right? You're not guaranteed each lifetime to come back to Honman, the essential truth. You can't save others unless you are teaching them Honman. Not everybody has the same mind as you do. Okay, so this is the teaching that is applicable to everyone. Okay, and the part of this sutra before this is this important point is revealed is called an acquired enlightenment. It represents the theoretical teaching. But when one comes to understand this point, the essential teaching of Honman, this is called original enlightenment, the enlightenment of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the original state, the eternally endowed three bodies. And this represents the essential teaching. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the place where all living beings originally dwell. Therefore, the sutra says, since I, in fact, attained Buddhahood, chapter 16. And we'll stop there until we come back for chapter 17 and beyond in the next video. Thank you very much.